gentlemen, I welcome you all here this evening. And this is a very special occasion for us this evening. I'm glad to see you all here. We're going to follow our program as outlined, and my welcome tonight was supposed to come from James Clifton. I'm not James Clifton, I'm Tyler Jones, chairman of the party. But he's my first vice chair. Unfortunately, he hasn't gotten here yet, so we're going to start the program. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Greg Clifton if he would come forward and give us a word of prayer for our invocation.
Okay, shall we pray? Father, we thank you for this evening and an opportunity to get acquainted with people running. We thank you for those who have offered themselves to serve in public office. We pray that the questioning and answers will help us to make wise decisions in choosing who to place in positions of responsibility. And as your word instructs us, Lord, we pray for all men and women in authority that we may live peaceful lives. And for Christ's sake, we ask it, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Clifton. If you all please, those of you who could stand join me in the pledge to our nation and the singing of our national anthem. So get those voices ready. Ready, salute, and pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. That was very good. Give yourself a hand. Very good. See, I pitched it kind of low so you wouldn't have to say something. All right. Right now, it gives me the pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Sherry Wergens, who is our Communication Public Relations Director for the Fayette County Republican Party. We do have a guest speaker tonight, so if you will indulge us, we're going to get to the debate, but we will hear from our guest speaker. Sherry.
Thank you, everybody. Tonight we do have a guest speaker, and his name is John Hidgens. He's a candidate for the Public Service Commission, District 5. I don't know whether, I did not know this, and maybe you don't either, but the mission of the Georgia Public Service Commission is to exercise its authority and influence to ensure that consumers receive safe, reliable, and reasonably priced telecommunications, electric and natural gas services from financially viable and technical competitive companies. That's a mouthful. I didn't know that. And I think my Georgia bill is just too high. Don't you all? Natural gas is doing okay, but you know, my Georgia power needs to come on down. So I introduce you to John Hidgens, who is going to enlighten you on some things that you may not know.
Thank you, Sherry. Mr. Chair, I just want to say that no way in this green earth would I ever stand this close to a microphone and sing the national anthem. So, I'm very impressed with you. So my name is John Hidgens, and I am running for Public Service Commission. And as Sherry pointed out, a lot of folks probably are not too familiar with that position, with that role and what it does. It is a statewide position. So I live in Cobb County, and it is divvied up by district. So there's actually 5 districts. However, that purely relates to where we live as a candidate, just so there's some geographical differences so you don't get folks from one area. But it doesn't matter for you guys and who you vote for. So everyone gets to vote. This year there are 2 commissioners, 2 of the 5 are up for election, or 2 of the seats. And that is in District 3 and District 5. Again, that doesn't really pertain to you guys. The incumbent in District 3 is running unopposed. However, in District 5, where I live, I have decided to challenge the incumbent, and I kind of use that incumbent term with air quotes, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But as Sherry pointed out, the role of the Georgia Public Service Commission is essentially to regulate your utilities. Now, as conservatives, most of us kind of prefer, we're not looking for overregulation in any regard. However, this is where the state is set up, and that's the role of this commission. And so, when I look at it from an outsider's point of view, I think there needs to be some of that regulation, but we also need to be representing the Georgians who are paying the bills and need the services that are being provided. As Sherry said, it's something that is technology, up to par, but also at a good price. Now, we have vast differences throughout the state on some of that, and it's a big state, and some areas are easier to get to than others. But the biggest issue of this, and the one that nobody can get around, is electricity. Some of you may be a little disappointed in your electricity bill. Georgia actually has pretty low rates compared to the rest of the country, but ours are actually going up. And next year there's going to be a rate review, and the commission has actually said that we could expect an increase somewhere between 11 and 14%. That's no small chunk of change. I'm sure everybody would agree on that. The big issue here, and the one that so many Georgians are disappointed in, so many don't know how to voice their displeasure about, and unfortunately so many are not aware of, is the Plant Vogtle situation over in East Georgia near Waynesboro. Plant Vogtle is a nuclear power plant, one of the 2 in the state of Georgia. And in 2009, Georgia Power, the Public Service Commission, along with the state legislature, decided to approve building 2 new reactors. Now, history would tell us that never in the United States had a nuclear reactor been built on time or on budget. So going into this, we knew this was a fiscally risky venture. But Georgia Power insisted that this was something we needed to do in order to diversify our portfolio, as natural gas prices were going to go up, coal prices were going to go up, the demand was going to go up, and therefore we needed to have some more resources for energy. I can understand that. I have other concerns about nuclear power in general, but I thought, it makes sense that we're going to, diversify our energy portfolio. I get it. We don't want to rely too much on coal, and that was kind of dwindling on its own. Turns out the natural gas didn't spike as much as people thought, and solar and some other sources are starting to come into the play. So, Georgia Power is a monopoly. It's a state-regulated monopoly. A lot of folks aren't really familiar with that. So they're guaranteed to make a profit every year. They somehow convinced the legislature and then the Public Service Commission that not only do they need this nuclear power, which a lot of people argued was not necessary, but they were going to allow Georgia Power consumers to pay for it up front. Now, who here is a Georgia Power ratepayer? So we got almost half, which in this county it makes sense. A lot of the rest of you, I assume, probably EMC. Is that right? Yeah. So consider yourself lucky if you're an EMC. However, the decisions made by Georgia Power, primarily because their shared infrastructure and things of that nature, do kind of trickle down to all of us when it comes to that utility. I am a Georgia Power ratepayer. And as I said, in 2011, Georgia Power said, well, here's the thing. We want to build these 2 new reactors, but we don't actually want to pay for them up front. We don't want to take on the risk of building these. So we're actually going to ask you to make the ratepayers pay for it. So since 2011, for those of you who are Georgia Power ratepayers, I would ask you to go home, take a look at your bill, turn it over, look on the back. You're going to see right here. I carry this with me everywhere because this is where our conversations came from. It's an eye-opener. Look on the back and you're going to see nuclear construction cost recovery. Now that's a fee they started asking their ratepayers to pay in 2011. That's a tax, okay? There's no way around it. That's a tax that you get every month from Georgia Power to pay for the 2 new reactors. How many watts of energy have those reactors produced to date? 0. They are grossly behind schedule, grossly over budget. The original price tag had it at $14 billion. That price tag has now grown to 27 is the latest number I saw. The original dates that those reactors were supposed to be online and producing energy was 2017 and 2018. That's now been moved to 2022. So for 10 years, people will be taxed for this project that we still don't know if it ever will produce any watt of energy. And we've also learned that the demand for it is actually not there. There's no need for it. But this past December, the Public Service Commission went ahead and voted again, 5-0, that ratepayers would continue funding this boondoggle. Now, if that doesn't start to get you a little hot, as I know it did Sherry when we talked last week, I would ask you, who's the Public Service Commission supposed to be looking after? Who are they supposed to represent? Utilities or Georgians? They're elected by us. They're not there to represent the utilities. Now, I've actually taken a pledge myself that I will not accept any money for my campaign from anyone associated with utilities that the PSC regulates. If you look at the other side of my opponent, it doesn't take but 2 seconds to look at their campaign finance form to see who's funding their campaign. Executives, you can't take money directly from the companies, but you look at it as executives from the gas companies, Georgia Power, Southern Company, telecommunications, the like. So, whose interests do you think the incumbents are looking after? Now, they'll tell you that they're looking after you guys, that they're here to represent you. But if they're being funded by the utilities, it kind of makes you think. Now, this is a 6-year elected position. So we have a choice to make in May for the Republican in the 5th District. If we want to take the risk of having somebody for 6 more years who's being funded by the utilities, or you can take the chance and vote on me. And I promise, I have pledged that I will not do that, even when elected. I will not take the money. And if somebody does make a donation, and I find out later that they are associated with one of those, I'll be happy to donate that straight to a nonprofit, probably something. What's that? Fayette County Republican Party. I was thinking something that might really just chapter hide, like the Sierra Club or something. But I like that one. We'll see. Maybe we'll take a look at where their geography is. That's good thinking. Maybe I'll think outside of that. So anyways, the point of this is, we currently have a system that's broken, that's not looking after Georgians. And some of you who aren't Georgia Power, as I mentioned, it does trickle down a little bit, but you might be thinking, well, I'm not really too worried about that. Well, here's the thing. They've now set a precedent. If natural gas companies say, well, we want to reach these areas, but we don't really want to take the risk of building those pipelines to get the natural gas to those consumers, how about we have them pay for it up front so they take on all the risks? Now, they're a for-profit company. They're a for-profit entity. They are making money even while the project was shut down this past summer. It was shut down, and Georgia Power continued to make profits off it. Now, I am not against profits. You know, if you're doing a good job, if you've got a good business and it's successful, have at it. But if you're not doing a good job, I don't understand why we're supposed to continue paying through this, but allowing them to continue making profits. Not to mention that it's also being propped up by federal subsidies, billions of dollars in federal guaranteed loans, tax credits, the like. You know, this thing it's gotten out of control. It's affecting everyone. Not to mention that the Department of Energy is responsible, and they haven't really come up with a security plan, safety plan for disposing of and securing the waste and things of that nature. But that's a federal problem. That's not a Georgia problem. So I'm here tonight because this is an issue that not many people are paying attention to, and it's understandable. It is a year where we're going to be electing a new governor, and that with it, and school board. There's a lot of issues that hit close to home, but these decisions made in the Public Service Commission do affect each and every one of us directly. And people need to pay attention, and they need to be aware of what is going on so that we can hold them accountable. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am an outsider. Guys, I've never run for office. The latest was doing some advocacy for solar for nonprofits and houses of worship. And part of the headache with that, I realized, is that it is really hard to get solar done in Georgia because Georgia Power doesn't want it to. I've met some farmers in Valdosta and Waycross who wanted to use their land to put solar on because their crops weren't making money, and there was a way for them to bring some income in, and essentially the system's set up that doesn't favor them. So I'm encouraging a system that brings on energy growth, energy differences, but allows, for innovation, not for putting all our money and eggs into one basket. Then the last point that really got me going, and this is when I basically said I have to throw my name in the hat. The current incumbent, as you remember, I said air quotes earlier, was actually appointed by the governor about a month ago. After 23 years, Stan Wise, the chair of the Public Service Commission, resigned, and he will be going to work for Energy Company. The very folks he was supposed to be regulating for 23 years, stepped down early so that the governor could hand pick his replacement. And that person could then carry the incumbent tag. And at that point I said, somebody has to give the people of Georgia a voice, a choice, and I decided to be that person. And at least at the very end of this, we can hold her accountable if she were to be elected and say that you said during the campaign that this is what you would do. And hopefully we can get the right answers, but hopefully you can have a consumer advocate on the Public Service Commission, and myself, being John Hitchens. And I do want to give some time, am I still on, huh?
I wasn't time.
Oh, no, I saw it?
Yeah, we're ready.
We can take questions afterwards.
Okay, so I am going to stick around. I know a lot of y'all are probably thinking, okay, I'm not so sure about that. One person, we were talking earlier, I do want to make this point before I sit down, is in regards to schools, since this is a topic you guys are going to be talking about. Your county, like my county, is split between the school systems that pay into Georgia Power and, or not the school systems, the schools that pay into Georgia Power and some that pay into the EMC. Guess what? Those schools also are paying that nuclear tax. If your church is Georgia Power, your church is also paying in that nuclear tax. If you have a small business, you're paying in that nuclear tax. How many times can you be taxed for one project that thus far has produced nothing and has been a total failure? That's the question I want to leave with you guys before you go out. Now, I won't stick around. I'll be happy to answer any questions after we go through what I know is going to be a very important conversation for Fayette County. So I appreciate you guys letting me come and talk about what I think is very important, along with all the other issues that we're facing in the state of Georgia and in our local community. And I just say thank you. So I'll look forward to talking with some of you folks later.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Hutchins, and of course, some people will probably be talking to you before you this evening. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, the main event. We finally arrived at that point. I'd like to introduce tonight our moderator. Our moderator for the evening is Ms. Bonnie Willis. Bonnie, would you stand, please, and let everybody see you? Okay. Bonnie will be asking the questions of the candidates this evening and giving them ample time to respond. Then we have our timer for the evening, and we call him the man with the pan in his hand. The guy who brought us here on vacation, the right and honorable former mayor of Fayetteville, Mr. Greg Clifton. Greg. Now, Greg has an item next to him. He's going to show it to you right now, Greg. You want to show him the pan?
Explain the program. Okay, candidates, you will have 3 minutes to answer any question. And at 1 minute, you'll see the 1 minute sign. 10 seconds before your time is up, you'll see the stop sign. If you keep talking after that, you'll see the what sign. If you need a 30-second notice, let me know, and I can waive the 1 minute and a 30-second notice if you need. But that's the way we got it set up for tonight. So, let's have some fun.
All right, he's a man with the pan in his hand, but don't worry about the WAP thing. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it.
And they walk anybody yet, but.
Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to the moderator, Ms. Bonnie Willis, who will introduce our candidates for the evening.
Good evening, everyone. As Tyra mentioned, my name is Bonnie Willis, but I know many of you in the room already. A brief introduction, many of you know me as an involved parent, former Fayette County Republican Party board member as a secretary, and I'm very pleased and happy to be moderating this evening's event. As someone who has 5 children currently in Fayette County Public Schools, I'm very interested in your answers to tonight's questions. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our 2 candidates. And I will just simply say their names because I would like for them to give their own introductions, and they can share briefly, maybe 2 minutes, about themselves and why they're running for this very important office, which is a school board member for District 2. So our first, ladies first, will be Tracy Fuller.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight, and I would like to thank the Republican Party for putting on the event. And I'd also like to say a special thanks to Ms. Bonnie Willis for giving up her time, and Mr. Clifton as well. And I'd also at this time like to thank my family and my friends and all of my clients who have supported me throughout this campaign. Without them, I couldn't be here today. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I appreciate you coming out tonight. My name is Tracy Fuller, and I am running for school board for District 2. And if you haven't noticed, I have a little bit of stiff competition running against me and a lot of red signs out there. And I am an 8th generation Fayette Countyan, and I have 3 sons that graduated from Whitewater High School. And I currently have 4 grandsons, one of which is a student at Inman Elementary. And I have a Fuller Insurance Agency. I have been the owner and the CEO for the last 12 years. I started the agency myself. The agency has over 50 agents, and we are currently licensed in 32 states. Prior to establishing my insurance agency, I was an interpreter here in the Fayette County school system. So I have worked in the classroom with those students and with those teachers on a daily basis. And I truly know the struggles that they go through every day. I'm also a licensed realtor here in the state of Georgia. So I also know the reasons that those families are moving into our county and the reasons that they are moving out of our county. So I know up close and personal where they're coming from, when they get here, and why they're leaving. I'm heavily invested in this community, and I would like to have the opportunity, if given, with your vote on May 22nd, to make a difference in this county. I feel like this school board is the heartbeat of our county, and I would like to play a major role in keeping it being really strong. For these reasons, I'm excited about our debate tonight. And I'm excited for you to be here and get to listen and learn about both candidates, myself and Mr. Rabel. I think after tonight you'll see why I'm the reason and I'm the person that should fill Diane Basham's seat when she leaves it. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Tracy. Our next candidate is Roy Rabel.
I too would like to thank everyone for coming this evening, and Ms. Willis and Timekeeper. I have been in education 42 years, 30 years in Fayette County. I was an administrator at McIntosh High School, Sandy Creek High School, and Whitewater High School. I was principal in the last 2 schools. I have lived in Fayette County for 25 years in the same house. My daughters are both products of the Fayette County school system, and my lovely wife of 43 years is here to support me as well. Why am I a good candidate for this position? I have worked in the system for 30 years. I've worked in 3 communities, both McIntosh, Peachtree City, Sandy Creek in the Northern District, and Whitewater in the Southern District. I feel that I know what the people in these communities are looking for in a quality education from the Fayette County school system. I have worked in these communities as a principal. I've worked with the parents, and I'm convinced that I can be the person that can help make this system even better. Through the support of the superintendent and working with people on an individual basis, my working knowledge of not only the schools, but the school system, the central office, will help me in making decisions which are best for our kids. And that's what I'm all about, making decisions that are good for the students in Fayette County. Supporting the teachers. I have been in the school for the last 30 years. I know what the teachers go through on a daily basis. I've been in the classrooms on a daily basis. I know what the kids go through on a daily basis because I've seen them, I've talked to them, I've worked with them. So because of these reasons, I would like to be elected to the Board of Education. I've put 30 years of my life into this school system, into the kids in the school system, and I want to continue. I want to continue helping. I want to continue working to make Fayette County once again the #1 school system in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. Okay, so for now I have several questions here, and each candidate will be given about 3 minutes to answer the questions. However, I'm going to try to leave a little bit of time at the end, so about 20 minutes worth of questions up front, and then maybe 10 minutes from the audience. So if you have your questions now, I would encourage you to succinctly write those questions, and Sherry's passing out index cards because we will be asking questions from the audience, and just try to keep them very succinct, and then we'll have hopefully each candidate answer them. If it's for one particular candidate, then please just address that candidate so that they can answer directly. Our goal is to fully get to know both of you, and also for the audience to get their questions asked. So let's get the show on the road. Our first question is, and all of these questions are directed to the both of you. The first one is, what are the core areas you see as opportunities for improving Fayette County school systems? And this may tie into some of the issues that you feel that are existing within Fayette County schools currently. And Ms. Tracy, I always refer to ladies first. Would you please answer the question first?
Yes. The 3 things that I feel like we could improve on in our county is #1, safety. I feel like there are issues that we can definitely improve on when it comes to safety. I feel like our county has definitely made a huge jump and a big step in improving these safety issues that we're faced with today, given the situation of the recent shootings that we all are very much aware of. I think that that's #1. #2, I think that providing pathways into careers is something that we are working on, and that I think that we've still got some improving to do to provide career readiness for our students. And then #3, I would say that we need to make sure that our kids are getting the counseling that they need. Our counselors are so overwhelmed with what they're having to do with schedules on a daily basis that I don't feel like our kids have someone to go to when they really have a problem emotionally, and I would like to see that improved.
Right. Okay. The 2 areas which I would like to focus on, again, #1 is safety. Safety is paramount in the United States today, is paramount in the minds of every parent. Fayette County has done a great job in the safety of our schools. Unfortunately, our schools were not designed at a time when people were coming in and shooting up the schools. So there are a lot of design flaws in our buildings, which the county is currently working on. We have cameras, we have resource officers. Every school has a safety plan. At Sandy Creek, the first year of safety plans, I was instrumental in writing the safety plan for Sandy Creek, and every year since then, as the principal, I had partial responsibility for the safety plans within our building. So safety is paramount. We have kids have to feel safe. And my vision as a high school principal was always to provide a safe learning environment where everyone could maximize their potential for success. Safe learning environment was the first part of my vision. Secondly, equity in education. We have to have equity among the schools in Fayette County. Parents all the time look at test scores. They want to see the test scores and they compare the schools based on test scores. And when you look at the test scores at the schools in our county, there is some discrepancy in some of the schools. The Board of Education recently agreed to hire 7 instructional coaches, which was a fantastic move on their part, because instructional coaches can work in the feeder patterns and they can help the schools and help the teachers within those schools so that we can have equity among our schools in Fayette County. Years ago, I tried to hire, and at that time they weren't called instructional coaches, they were called academic coaches, but was unable to do so. But I was allowed to hire reading teachers at Sandy Creek when I was at Sandy Creek, and the reading teachers help improve our test scores. So each individual school has their own needs, and the instructional coaches will definitely help with the equity in our schools. And again, continuing working with safety and the agreement that we have with the Sheriff's Department, that the school system and the Sheriff's Department has an agreement. And I was on the committee that worked on that agreement so that the Sheriff's Department is always involved in the schools and is there when we need them for safety.
Thank you. All right, the next question goes to you, Roy. One of the core responsibilities of a board member is financial oversight. As you can imagine, there are a significant number of projects that require money in this county and in the budget or with East Plus funds. What are the types of projects that you would prioritize for taxpayer funding?
As a high school principal, I had to work with a budget from the Board of Education every year. And I had to work with budgets when I received $500,000, and I had to work with budgets when I received $138,000. But the parents still expected and demanded the same type of educational quality for their students. So I know what it is working with taxpayer money, and I know how to divert the money so that it's going to the best purpose for the students, to make the students successful. As far as projects, the East Plus that was recently passed by the public, I will be a good steward and I will support you in what you expect out of that East Plus. And the East Plus, the board has already, and the superintendent has already indicated certain programs for East Plus money. Technology seems to be the most current thing that a lot of money is being put into. Some of our buildings are getting older and need renovations for not only safety, but also just renovations in general. But academics always has to come first. Academics, not first, but academics, fine arts, and career tech. We have to look at those 3 programs and make sure that we're accommodating the needs of all the students in those 3 programs and make sure that we as board members are always giving the appropriate amount of money for those 3 programs and the programs that make them successful.
All right, thank you. All right, Tracy?
I was so involved in listening to his answer, I've almost forgot what the question was.
I can repeat it.
Please do.
Sure. As you know, one of the core responsibilities of a board member is financial oversight. As you can imagine, there are a significant number of projects where money is needed, and there's budget, and there's East Blast. What types of projects would you prioritize allocating funds for taxpayer funding?
Okay, thank you for reading that. Well, as a business owner, I can tell you that fiscal responsibility is very important. I built my insurance agency from the ground up myself, and I can tell you that it's feast or famine in the very early days. And so you have to really know how to make a budget, and you have to know how to allocate those funds and spend them wisely and where it's needed most. So when it comes to the different types of projects for the Board of Education, I would think that we would first need to look at safety and the schools that need improvements. That's going to be needing to be addressed immediately. And then when we are looking at the different pathways for our students for career readiness, I think that is also a task that is already implemented, and I think that there's more work to be done there. So I really feel like allocating those tax dollars wisely is very important, and having the business background that I bring to the table, I would always put our students first and the community and what is going to be best for them.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, I can do these questions. Let's see. How would you go about advocating for public education in our community? This is a key responsibility for school board members.
First, I'd like to say that I think there's a misconception about what the actual duties of a school board member are. And I'd like to clarify that to start with, so I can answer that question so that you would try and, I guess, understand just a little bit. The school board's job is to look over those students and look after them, but it's also to bridge the community to the public schools. So it's very important to have involvement from the community to know what's going on with our children. It's very difficult to be on the school board and not have that interaction from the community. So it's most important and it's imperative that we have involvement from our community. And I think that there are a lot of different ways that we can encourage that. And I would really like to see our school board meetings even maybe go live so that there could be some type of interaction between our community and the school board, even during the meetings when they're actually occurring.
Thank you. Okay.
Could you just repeat that, advocate?
Sure. How would you go about advocating for public education within our community? This is a key role for our school board.
Okay. We have a lot of award-winning schools in our system, and that's why people from around the country and around the state of Georgia move into Fayette County. And when you look at the awards that our schools win, as a school board member and as a former principal, I'm extremely proud for what Fayette County schools have done and what we've accomplished in Fayette County. So it's easy to advocate for. We don't have a typical school system in Fayette County. We have an above average school system in Fayette County. We at one time were number 1 in the state, and now we're number 2 and 3 in the state, depending upon which scores you're looking at. When you look at U.S. News and World Report rankings and the niche rankings and other rankings from around the country, Fayette County is always ranked extremely high. So it's easy to advocate for public education in Fayette County. Why should people want to go to Fayette County schools? Because they are great, because they do a great job, because the teachers work hard, the administrators work hard, the board works hard. And so it's easy to advocate for something that is good, and it's easy to promote that.
All right. Our next question is, there's a perception in the county that some of our schools are not as good as others. As a board member, how would you go about addressing this, eliminate this kind of thinking?
Okay, and I did address this a little bit previously. The board recently agreed to hire 7 instructional coaches to work in feeder patterns where test scores are not as good as other schools in the county. Equity in the schools is my number 2 priority. If you look at the priorities on my website, they've been there since March and they haven't changed. Equity in school is good. And we need to have this equity, and the equity comes about because of the needs of the school. All of our schools are not the same. Yes, we are a school system, but different schools within the system have different needs. And as a board member, you have to recognize the needs of the different schools. Coming from Sandy Creek and going to Whitewater, going from McIntosh to Sandy Creek, I saw the different needs in the schools and the different needs of the communities. All parents want the same thing. They want their school to be the best. They want their child to get a great education. So what we have to do as board members is we have to give the principals what they need in order to make their school successful. I needed 2 reading teachers at Sandy Creek. I received 2 reading teachers, and the next year we were a bronze school. The next year we were a gold school. So being able to work with the principals, which we don't do as the board members, but supporting the superintendent and his requests for what we need to do to help the principals make their schools better, because all parents, they want to look at test scores, and they constantly want to compare those test scores. So we have to get those test scores up.
Thank you.
I do not believe that we have that many discrepancies between our schools in this system. I commend our board because I feel like they are very fair across our county with our schools. I do not feel that one is favored more than another. If you look at the test scores, you will see that that is just not true. I think it is a misconception across our county, and I think that one way to address that would be to start with our realtors here in Fayette County. And I think that our superintendent recently met with Vicki Butler, the president of the Fayette County Board of Realtors, to address this situation. Because as a realtor here in Fayette County, I know that we are on the front lines. We meet those families when they are moving here. We hear them when they say things like, oh, I want to move to Fayette County because of the school systems, but I don't want to live in that neighborhood. We hear that, and we hear when people are moving out of this county. And I can tell you that being on the front lines, the realtors here in this county could be very beneficial. It's crucial for them to be educated on our school systems and to know what's going on in each county, so that when we meet those clients when they're moving here, that we can be the first responder to come to the aid of those other schools to educate them on the programs that they have and the scores that they have, so that they are educated and that we can do away with the misconception that that school system, that school over there is not as good as this school. So I think it's very important that we work together, that the school board works very closely with the Fayette County Board of Realtors. I am currently co-chair of the communications committee for the Fayette board locally here, and I know that we are advocating to have a closer relationship with the school board.
Thank you. My next question will go to you, Tracy, first. As a board member, you don't have operational control in the school system, but you do serve on a governance board along with 4 other members. And it's very important how the board dynamics operate to run efficiently. We don't like having nasty splashes of confrontation among board members. So with that said, how would you work with your other board members and the superintendent and the county staff to accomplish having great schools here in Fayette County?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because I feel like on the school board, diversity and balance is number 1. That has to be a priority on our school board, because you have different views, and when they all come together, it makes for a good balance. And currently, we have an all-male board, except for Ms. Diane Basham, who is going to be stepping down. And I bring that up not just because I'm female and I feel like, oh, I'm female, I'm the most qualified for that position, but I bring that up because can you imagine having a family, your family dynamics with no female voice? I feel like a female voice brings to the table something that is needed on the school board, diversity, so that we can all work together. And what is the saying that you play nice and everyone works together and you can accomplish a great deal. But if you're constantly bickering, nothing gets done. So you have to go into this with a very open mind, and you can't go into it thinking that you're going to go in and you're just going to change everything, or that something is wrong and you've got to fix it. You go in with a very open mind, and at the end of the day, after you all give your ideas and you've had a very open mind, then that's when you can collaborate and you can get something done.
Thank you.
I think that I would add to the dynamics of the board, because I feel that the board needs to have an educator on the board. Ms. Basham was a former teacher, and she provided a perspective from a teacher, from an educator in the trenches. That's not to say that we don't have educators on the board. Dr. Marchman is a professor at Georgia Tech. So I know that we do, but I think the dynamics, or me being on the board, would change the dynamics in that I've worked daily in the school, I've operated the schools, I've run the school as a principal, constant interactions with the central office, and I've supported the superintendent. All my years as principal, I have always supported the superintendent, and I worked for many of them, but I am a team player. When it comes time to make decisions, I will argue with the team behind closed doors, but when we're in public, I will abide by what the team decides, what the team wants to do. Working with the other members of the board would not be difficult. I have been on several committees sponsored by the superintendent, working within my school. I've had to work with other administrators and other teachers on various committees and school councils and PTSOs. So I know what it is to have to work with people. And I know what it is that you're not the boss. And being able to support the superintendent, that's easy for me because I've done it for 30 years. Working with other members of the board, I think I would bring a different perspective because of my background and my knowledge from within the school system, which would help them make decisions. So that's how I feel that I would affect the dynamics of the board.
Thank you. All right, good. You have the next question. I'm going to ask you one more question that has been pre-written, and then I'm going to go to these list of questions that I've gotten from the audience. So, my last question before I go to audience questions is, how do you see our school system better preparing our students to be ready for college or be career ready when they graduate, and your specific role as a board member enabling them to do so?
Okay. As a board member, we are not involved in the day-to-day operations of the school system. We would vote on policies, we would vote on programs. So keeping track of the programs that the superintendent presents to the board to make decisions as to whether or not these are good programs or programs that we're not sure we can support. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I support academics, fine arts, and career tech. To give you an example, last year, Whitewater High School had 1,400 students. Over 1,100 students took at least one career tech class. So I promote career tech. Academics, 48% of our students took the advanced placement test, so the AP test. We gave 750 tests. In the fine arts, we had 650 students in the fine arts at Whitewater. So supporting all three programs is paramount. And when you support the programs and you have good teachers, the bottom line is the person who affects the student the most in their success is the teacher. So having good teachers and supporting the teachers and making sure the teachers are trained. The guidance counselors work with the students on career programs. All kids in high school do Naviance, which is a career program, a career-based program to help them make a decision along with their parents as far as what it is they should do, what career they should take. At Whitewater High School last year, we had more career pathways than any high school in the county. We had 14 career pathways. I was on Dr. Barrow, when Dr. Barrow first came to this county, and he was looking at the college and career academies. I was on the initial committee that was looking at college and career academies, and I visited college and career academies and other school systems to see what they had to offer. We currently in Fayette County have the COI, where we are preparing students for careers and not necessarily going to college, or careers that will take them to college. But we are moving down that pathway. I've seen the ad from Casey Cagle about college, that he promoted college and career academies. We are moving in that direction as far as the school system with the Center of Innovation, the COI. There are currently 250 students in the Center of Innovation. This is its second, third year in operation. It's only going to expand more. So promoting all the programs and making sure that we meet the needs of every student in the county. What it is they want, again, with their parents. We don't make the decisions without the parents, but making sure that we're providing them what they need to be successful in life.
Thank you.
When we're talking about different areas and pathways for our children to learn, I think it's important that we look at all of our children, not just focus on one particular group of children over another, because all children learn at a different speed, and all kids are looking for different pathways when they graduate. So I think it's important that we look at them overall. I know as a mother of 3 boys that graduated from Whitewater High School, each one of them chose a different path, and I supported each one of them. It's crucial that we have those AP classes and in the area of STEAM. However, not all of our kids are going to be on their pathway to a college degree or become doctors or lawyers. So I feel like it's very important that we address that. And here in our county, we have a very unique situation that we can capitalize on, and that is Pinewood, the film studio. And I think that our school system has already recognized that, and they are already acting on that. And so there is a program being implemented now for our upcoming seniors that will have the opportunity to be at the Innovation Center and will be able to take classes so that when they get out and they graduate, it's a dual pathway for them. So it's a win-win. When those kids get out, they're going to be job ready. And that is so crucial, and that is important for our kids. My oldest son decided to take the business route. My middle son, he decided to graduate and he went to Nashville Auto Diesel College. And might I add, he makes a really good living. And then my youngest son decided to go into the military, and he's actually deployed right now, and he's on aboard the USS Harry S. Truman. And I'm very proud of all 3 of them, and I'm excited our county, the direction that it's taking by offering these alternative tracks for our children in education and the different pathways that are available to them. And I strongly support those.
Thank you. And thank you, son, for the service to our country.
Thank you. I miss him very much.
All right, so now audience questions. If you recognize your question and you feel like I haven't expressed it fully, I'm just gonna kind of look back to see that I'm properly reading these. I won't be able to ask all of them, but I will try to get through a few of them. So the first one is, in your opinion, I love how they wrote this. In your opinion, and this is to both of you, and I will start with you, Tracy, what went wrong for schools in Bay County as to why we're not on top of the scale? So I guess that's to speak to that, why we're no longer number 1.
I don't know. That may be a question for the current board members. I'd hate to speak for them on why they feel like our numbers had slipped. I can tell you that being a board member, it will be on the top of my priority to get them back up on the top. And I would do everything that I can as a board member to be instrumental in making that happen.
My opinion, right?
Be careful with your opinion.
Nothing went wrong with the Fayette County school system. As Ms. Fuller's already alluded to, people want to move to Fayette County because of the school system. And because we receive so many transitional students, especially in the Fayette County High School feeder pattern and the Sandy Creek High School feeder pattern, we're getting more and more students coming into our system who are not at the same level as the students that go through the Fayette County school system. And because they come in, and unbelievably, I've had students at both Whitewater and Sandy Creek come from other counties that are reading on a 3rd and a 4th grade level. But the textbooks in the high school are written on a minimum 9th and 10th grade level. They can't do it, and they struggle. And because of that, it brings down the test scores, which is what everybody looks at as far as ranking schools in the state. And because of the transitional students coming in, this is what has affected our school system. We still have a great school system, and we've always had a great school system. Nothing went wrong, it's just that our clientele is changing. And when you take a student from kindergarten through 12th grade in Fayette County, there's no problem. But when you have the students moving in that are not on grade level and they're not prepared, and you have to play catch up with them, and sometimes, unfortunately, they don't catch up. That's what changed the test scores, and that's what changed our rankings.
Okay, I think this is a good question, even though it's from a different person, but almost as a follow-up. Do you think PBIS is an effective intervention strategy, or will it be an effective strategy going forward? What would be a better strategy?
There are different discipline programs that come out about every 4 or 5 years. In 1990, I was trained in Lee Cantor's assertive discipline program, which all the school systems were using. Then a few years later, it became Max Thompson's discipline program. Now it's PBIS. PBIS is a good program if it's implemented properly. I believe that it hasn't been implemented properly in this county. That they try to use the same standards in PBIS for elementary school and high school, and it doesn't work that way. PBIS uses a lot of reward and a lot of positive reinforcement. All discipline programs use positive reinforcement. However, when you get to the high school level, you have to start becoming more realistic with your positive reinforcement and not give kids candy bars and whatever when they do a good job in class, because you're trying to prepare them to go out in the world. And PBIS has strategies for the use at the high school level. However, the implementation in Fayette County, from my experience, is we've used the PBIS system for the elementary school across all 3 levels, and that doesn't work. If we go back and use the PBIS system for high school at the high school, middle school to middle school, elementary at elementary, I think that PBIS can be an effective system. However, in 5 years, there'll be something else new.
Can y'all tell us what PBIS means?
PBIS, what is it?
PBIS, so they know.
Positive Behavior Information System.
I think that through the years, we have seen changes in the children that come through our school system. And I think that if you look at these children, you'll see that their raising has changed. It starts at home, people. Our children need to be taught values at home before they come to school. So a lot of our issues start at home before our kids ever get to the school system. So our school system is faced with children that are totally different than the children that came through when I came through the school system here in Fayette County, when I graduated from Fayette County High School. So I think that our disciplinary, our systems are ever changing as well. And we need to keep up with that. But the fact remains that positive reinforcement works with our children. And I think that the program that is in place currently, it does work, but it does have to be implemented properly. But we also have to be aware that these children that are coming through our school systems are moving here from other places. But we have to know where those kids are coming from, and we have to know the issues that they're coming from. So that's where I think that the counselors can make a difference, is to know where those kids are coming from and be involved so that we know how to discipline those children. But more importantly, we really need to focus on these programs that we have in place. We need to look at them and reevaluate them ever so often and know that they are working so that we can make changes as the children change. that are coming through our school system. So I think we need to definitely monitor them, and we need to look and see that they are being successful.
Another question is, what specific, and I'll address this to you first, Tracy, what specific administrative structure changes would you like to see at the central office, if any? Kind of a targeted question.
Well, I know that there is a misconception that our central office is, because the budget, if you look at the budget at our central office, it appears that there's a lot of money allocated there. However, I think if you really look at those positions that the individuals that are being held there, they all have 2 or 3 titles to them. They are all really working hard, and they have a lot of different hats to wear. And so I personally feel like some of them need to really be relieved of some of their hats that they currently are having to wear. I think that they are being held accountable for a far range of things that is just not, it's just not necessary.
As I stated earlier, the success of the student, the person who has the most impact on the success of the student is the teacher. And the person that has the most impact on the success of the school is the principal. So you're asking a former principal, what administrative changes would I like to see at the central office? I would like to see less people working at the central office and more teachers in the classroom, because more teachers in the classroom are going to affect the lives of the kids. Yes, the people at the central office have responsibilities, but again, from my perspective, a lot of times the people at the central office create work that is not needed by the teachers and by the administrators in the school who are in direct contact with those kids every day. So, and if you look at the increase in the number of positions at the central office in proportion to the increase of the number of teachers that we received or had received in teacher allotments, it's not proportional. And there's more people going to the central office than there are teachers going to meet with the kids. Unfortunately, I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day whose son was in a class, elementary school class with 28 students. And he pulled them out of Fayette County schools and put them in a private school, because a private school there were 16 kids to a teacher. We need more teachers in the building. We don't need more people in the central office creating work for those teachers. We need more teachers in the building, and we need those teachers to be able to do their job.
All right, the next question is, currently the Fayette County Board of Education provides little funding for fine arts programs such as band and orchestra. Do you support increasing funding for these programs?
I've always been a big proponent of the fine arts programs, and as I mentioned earlier, we had a strong fine arts program at Whitewater. In times of budget cuts, fine art always gets cut. That's the first program or the first area that gets cut as far as money is concerned. Yes, if the money is there, providing more support to the fine arts program would be great. But again, you have to look at the budget, you have to look at the money, and you have to see what programs you have in place and what programs you're going to put in place. 90% of the time, fine arts programs are supported by the booster clubs for the fine arts. And generally, every fine arts, whether it be band, orchestra, chorus, drama, they have their own booster clubs just like athletics, and those people raise a lot of money, and they support the fine arts programs within the school. If the money is available, yes. I don't have a problem doing that.
I would love to know that our budget would command having more money allocated to the fine arts program. I would love to be able to say that we would allocate X amount of dollars of whatever they needed to that program. However, I think we have to keep in mind that we are asking a lot out of our school board right now for safety. And we have to prioritize what is most important in our school system. And not that it's not important, it's just I think that we have to look overall at where we need to be allocating our dollars and use them wisely. And right now, I think on the forefront of everyone's mind is safety, and I think that we need to address that. And we also need to look at all of the programs and see where our money is going and making sure that it is going where it needs to be.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 more questions here from audience members, and I suspect that many audience members probably have questions that they would like to ask you as well. But for the sake of time, I'm going to cut it off here, but know that I have 2 more. So if you didn't hear your questions and asked, please feel free to go to the candidates and ask them your questions. But I would like to wrap up with the 2 of you explaining why you feel that you would be the best candidate to serve on our board, and be very specific as to why, and to express if you feel that you are primarily a representative of the community or a representative of the school system. And we will start with you, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. I am very proud to be a lifetime resident here in Fayette County and to have the opportunity to share with you tonight about myself and my willingness to serve on the Fayette County School Board. I know how to run a business, I know how to run a family, and I know how to give back to my community. I make it a priority to give back to this community that I live in. And I don't just talk, I actually do it, and I serve this community well. I've also worked directly in our school system as an interpreter. And the fact that I have 3 sons that graduated from Whitewater High School, and I currently have a grandchild, going into Inman Elementary, and he currently is in the speech program there. I feel like I am well equipped to understand and answer any concerns or questions that our parents in our community may have. And finally, it's about representation. I believe it's important to acknowledge that the 4 sitting members on the board currently are all male, along with the leadership of a male superintendent. These gentlemen are serving with honor and a distinction, and I applaud that. I applaud their service, and I appreciate it. But with Diane Basham stepping down, our Fayette County School Board is going to be missing its only female voice. And imagine running your household and family without a female voice, or our student body without a female voice, or imagine our classrooms even without a female voice. Excuse my pun to my fellow Republicans, but this potential lack of female representation on the school board is the elephant in the room. And I thank you so much for your consideration and your time tonight. And thanks again to the Fayette County Republican Party for putting on such a wonderful event and having this debate here. And thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate you coming out for us to have the opportunity to tell you a little about ourselves. I feel like I can do what you need me to do on that board. I will be the voice for this community and for our parents and for our children and our local business owners. Because let's not forget those relationships with our local business owners, because they play a vital role in our Fayette County School Board. My name is Tracy Fuller, and I would love to have your support and your vote on May 22nd. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Tracy.
This is like being in a job interview. You're never more perfect than when you interview for a job. Why would I be the best candidate? Because I have the interests of the kids at heart. I have 42 years. My 30 years as an administrator, I always did what was best for kids. And sometimes that included arguing with central office, sometimes that included arguing with teachers, but always I did what was best for kids. My experience working in the system for 30 years, my experience serving on county committees with the county office, serving on committees for regional accreditation agencies and state accreditation agencies and visiting other schools, I presented for Georgia State University. I presented for RISA centers all over the state of Georgia on programs that we have implemented in schools where I have worked, which were best for kids. I understand the workings of the central office. Unfortunately, there's been times when I've sat in board meetings and I've seen the wool pulled over the eyes of board members because they didn't understand and didn't know the workings of the central office and the workings of schools and how things are implemented and what happens when they vote on certain programs and don't vote on certain programs. This is a perspective which I could bring to the board. Now when the board is confronted with a program, a position, I can say, let me tell you how this really works. Let me tell you what really happens in the schools. Let me tell you what really is going on here. And I think that this is a perspective that would be welcome. Instead of after the fact finding out that you voted for something that maybe you shouldn't have voted for, now we can know beforehand. So the experience, my leadership abilities, I've been a successful leader in every school that I've worked. The schools have been successful and the kids have been successful. 2 years ago, Whitewater High School had the 7th highest graduation rate in the state of Georgia, 93%. I work for the kids. I want to do what's best for the kids. That's what their parents want, what is best for the kids. So it's easy for me to work with the parents. It's easy for me to represent the communities because I have. As a principal, I represented the community at Sandy Creek. I represented the community at Whitewater when we went to central office meetings, and I could say, this is what my community wants. This is what my community needs. So I feel that I can represent all of Fayette County, and especially the people in District 2. Again, thank you for having me this evening. I appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for those who work behind the scenes to make this available to us and to the public.
If everyone, we just want to thank you all, Tracy and Roy, for being the candidates here today and participating in this debate. We really do appreciate your time. My goal was to finish before 8. And I know that we do have some announcements here, and I know that our chairman, Tyrone Jones, wanted to make some last closing remarks. But we really do hope that everyone felt that they learned something about Tracy Fuller and Roy Raybould and their passion for why they're running, their experience, and please, again, if you didn't get your question asked, go to them afterwards and ask their questions. And I believe we had our public service commissioner that was here. He said, okay, yep, he's back there. If you have questions for him, I want to make time for you to ask those questions as well. Announcements as we wrap up. Our next debate is for the Board of Commissioners, so that should be very interesting and fun. Will be on Monday, May 14th, from 6:30 to 8. And it is at McIntosh High School? Auditorium. McIntosh Auditorium. So hopefully, if you have questions for the 3 candidates, Eric Inker, Don Haddix, or Edge Gibbons, you will show up with your questions. Our next event, Fayette County Republican Party event, is the Chili Cook-Off on Friday, May 18th, from 6:30 to 8:30, and it's here at the event center. So those of you who have great chili recipes, please come out. Families are invited. I may show up with my clan for a nice bowl of chili, and I won't have to cook that night. So if you have any questions or want to attend that, please see Sherry in the back. Is she back there? Yep, right there, for the chili cook-off. And last, just as a general reminder, hopefully you all are receiving our monthly newsletters featuring a letter from our chairman and also announcements of our Saturday morning breakfasts. So those are always good and very informational. And of course, this is the election season, so we tend to have candidates come and speak and get to know them. So we strongly encourage you to come out to our Saturday morning breakfast. It's generally the first Saturday of the month. So we have one coming up in June. I think that concludes all of our announcements, and thank you again, both candidates. We are very fortunate to have both of you running and representing our Republican Party going forward. Thank you.
Well, that was for being here tonight. And I do know that each of you have listened very intently to what they have to say. And that you will talk to your community and your neighbors about these candidates in this district, and that you will at least spread the word. And the main thing is to get to the polls and vote. That's the main thing. Early voting started today. And I think the last day for early voting is on the 12th. Is it 12th?
Early voting?
Yeah, it ends on the 12th, right? Help me out.
There's a Saturday meeting.
On the 18th. All right.
Yeah.
It ends on the 18th.
Saturday, the 19th. We have,
And there's a Saturday voting. That's the main 12th.
There's a Saturday voting,
Okay.
and the paperwork is up at the round table if anybody wants to take a copy home of the dates and the times and where.
All right. Okay, well, we want to thank our moderator. Let's give her a hand, please, Ms. Blackwell. Beautiful job. And the man with the pen in his hand, the former mayor of Fayetteville, the great one, Mr. Ray Clifton. And I'd like to just say again, very heartfeltly to Ms. Fuller, thank you so much for being here. And God bless you and good luck on your campaign. And the same to you, Mr. Raybold, thank you so much for coming. And God bless you too, and great luck to you in your campaign. All right, at this time, if you would please, I'm going to encourage you to try to come out Saturday, please, if you can, for our breakfast. First Saturday, we do have a guest speaker who's an author, and we also do have some candidates who will be appearing at our breakfast. At this time, I'd like to just give a benediction of sorts. I know we have invocations, but we rarely do benedictions. And the benediction basically just says, you know, it's a go in peace, you know. When I was in high school, and I took 4 years of Latin, I learned a lot about language through Latin. And of course, you know, bene means what? Good. Oh, well, we got some educators in here, boy, I tell you what. But yeah, it's words of goodness and words that encourage. So at this time, if you would stand, please just join me in a short benediction. As we leave this place, Heavenly Father, let us go forward and do good. Let us work hard in our communities to strengthen our communities and strengthen our families, our schools, and our civic organizations who work for the good of all in our community. We want to ask that you shower us with your blessings from day to day. And as we journey through life, that you show us the way and that you be the light unto our path. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. If you would, please go see the candidates. Ms. Fuller is right here to the rear, and Mr. Raybold's on the other side, and Mr. Hitchens will be available as well. He will be over here at the round table.